Alright, here's an example of the principal rate and time, or an interest problem. So you're given principal rate and time, and there is this equation. So you'll have to know this equation for the test, that the interest equals the P, principal, times the R, which is the rate, times the time, and the time in years. They give the time in months here, but we have to think of it in terms of years. So when we are looking at these problems, you have to be very careful that you're not just calculating I and then you're done. In this situation, you have to find the total amount due on the loan. And this is not just the interest. You have to calculate the interest that would then be added to the principal. That's the total amount due on the loan. Because you could be given a loan for a certain amount, but you're given that money at a certain rate over a certain time, and during that time frame this principal that you were given increases by this rate until 18 months is over. So you have to calculate the interest and then add the interest back to the principal to find the total amount due on the loan. But enough talking, let's do the problem. Alright, so we have interest equals principal times rate times the time. And we're going to take our numbers and plug them into the equation. So our principal is $1,500, and then our rate is given in a percentage. Well, we can't leave it that way. We cannot multiply a percent. We have to change percents to decimals. And this can be very tricky. In other words, the percent may not be a whole number. But I'll show you an example of how to change a percent with a whole number, and then I'll show you an example of how to change a percent when there's like 8.5%. So change 8.5% to a decimal. And when we do this, all we're doing is this number 8 has a decimal here, and anytime you're taking off the percent sign, you're dividing by 100, which means you're moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So then the percent becomes 0.08 as a decimal. That's pretty straightforward. Well, what about the case where you have to change 5.5%, say 5.5%. What you have to do is you can't move a decimal over. There is no decimal until you change the fraction to a decimal, or you're really changing this mixed number to a decimal. And how you do that is you take the fraction and you're dividing 2 into 1, or you're doing this essentially, 2 into 1. That's what you do to change 1/2 to a decimal. Some of you may already know 1/2 equals 0.5. Whoops. We already know that. But if you want to work it out, 0 into 1 doesn't go, so you add the decimal, add a 0. 2 into 10 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. So then you do have a decimal of 0.5. So this change 5.5% to a decimal becomes 5. The whole number doesn't go away, but we just add that decimal. But it's percent. We still haven't removed the percent sign. We've only fixed the number there, so now we can do our trick of move the decimal. So you have to remember there's 2 steps to changing a fraction or a mixed number with a percent sign on it back to a decimal. So now that we've changed the mixed number to this decimal, it still has the percent. Let's take the percent sign off, which means simply dividing by 100. So we move it 2 places to the left, and that gives us a decimal of 0.055. So you would use that as the rate to multiply by. So be very careful. In this situation, we were just given a whole number, 8%, so that's easy. So now we are going to take that 0.08 and we're going to multiply it by time. Well, time is in months. Anytime you have time in months, you have to divide by 12 months. So 18 months divided, let's spell it out, divided by 12 months. You can reduce 18 over 12. And you can divide both numbers, the numerator and the denominator, by 6. And if you divide 18 by 6, you will get 3 on the numerator. And if you divide 12 by 6, you get 2. You get 3 halves. So we can use the fraction 3 halves, but we've got a whole number, a decimal, and then we're going to multiply by a fraction. That's not really helpful. So it's smart to change our fraction to a decimal. In this situation, 3 halves is equal to 1 1/2. If you can't see that, you can do the division as I showed you before. You can just simply divide 2 into 3, which doesn't really go, so you put that 0 on there. Well, it does go. 1 times 2 is 2, and that's 1, but you want to keep going until you can't do anything more. So 1.5 is the decimal. So you can divide 2 into 3 and get 1.5 as a decimal, or if you see it as 1 1/2, remember the half is a 0.5. 1/2 equals 0.5, so you could come up with 1.5 looking at it that way without doing that division. So that's the number that we're actually going to use in our equation. That is 1.5. So we have all of this to multiply in our calculator. Remember, that's giving us interest. So 1,500 times 0.08 times 1.5 equals 180. That's a nice even number. And that's the interest. Remember, we've just calculated interest. And that's only the interest that would accrue on this principal over 18 months at a rate of 8%. So the interest accrued is $180. So we take now to find the total amount due on the loan. We take total amount due would then equal $1,500 plus the interest earned, and so that would be plus 1,500, 1,680 is the total amount due on the loan.